In the underworld, Odysseus speaks with a number of deceased souls. There seems to be a sequence or structure in this. At first, he speaks with Tiresias, since this was the ostensible goal of the journey. Then he speaks to a number of female souls. Then finally, he speaks with male souls, including his old comrades in arms from Troy. From Tiresias, he learns that Poseidon holds a grudge against him for blinding Polyphemus. Thus, this god will make returning to Ithaca very difficult, but not impossible. The prophet tells Odysseus what he must do in order to make it back home, thus foreshadowing the action of the second half of the poem. Odysseus is also told that he will die at sea when he is old. Odysseus' death is not something that is described in the work itself, which ends with his return home and defeat of the suitors of his wife Penelope. This is, however, the point of departure of the poem about Odysseus by Tennyson, which describes the hero's final journey. The other figures that Odysseus sees in the underworld and the stories that are associated with them constitute a veritable encyclopedia of Greek mythology. In his account of the female figures, one motif that frequently recurs is that the mortal women are victimized by the gods who sleep with them. Antipae was seduced by Zeus, as was Alcmene, and Tyro was deceptively seduced by Poseidon, as was Iphidamia. This can also be compared with Calypso's reproaches of the gods for their exploitation and persecution of divine women and their mortal lovers. Moreover, the gods regularly destroy humans who offend them or are perceived as a threat. In this sense, the Greek gods are similar to the Mesopotamian ones. There's a negative relation, or one of animosity in many cases. Odysseus also sees Queen Jocasta, the mother of Oedipus. She, quote, in ignorance of her mind, had done a monstrous thing when she married her own son. He killed his father and married her, but the gods soon made it known to mortals. This schematizes the key issue of the value of human knowledge that we will explore later in connection with Sophocles' tragedy, Oedipus the King, which tells this story. When Odysseus speaks with the souls of the heroes of Troy, this provides the author with an opportunity to continue the tale of the Iliad by telling the fates of the individual heroes after the end of the war. Agamemnon, the leader of the Greek expedition to Troy, is the first of the male souls that Odysseus speaks with. Agamemnon tells of his return home, where his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus murdered him. This story is recounted in dramatic form in the Oresteia by Aeschylus. The story has a foreboding quality, since Odysseus' goal is to return to his home and wife. Thus, steadfast Penelope is implicitly praised in contrast to the wicked and deceiving Clytemnestra. The story serves to put Odysseus on his guard when he returns home, since he must first disguise his identity in order to learn about the situation before acting to restore himself to his rightful place. This is another example of his use of caution and restraint instead of immediate impetuous action. Next, Odysseus talks with Achilles, who is primarily concerned about the fate of his son. Odysseus then sees Ajax and tries to speak to him, but Ajax, still angry about an insult, refuses and stalks off. Odysseus then sees a series of mythological figures: Minos, one of the judges of the underworld, Orion, Tithys, Tantalus, and Sisyphus. Finally, the underworld episode ends with a discussion with the legendary hero Heracles. For the ancients who were familiar with these figures and the mythological stories associated with them, this would have made for entertaining reading or listening. It gives one a sense of the great value of the Homeric poems as a source of information about Greek mythology and religion. It's no wonder that the historian Herodotus says that Homer and Hesiod, quote, were the first to compose for the Greeks an account of the gods' genealogy, to award them their titles, to allot them their honors and particular talents, and to signify their forms. He thus acknowledges Homer's role in the creation of the Greek religion. In the ancient world, the Homeric works were regarded with religious reverence, and the analogy has been drawn to the Bible. There were central works in the education of any cultivated person in the Greek world.